Should anyone own the North Pole? Written by Luane Silver. Words focus question. Why is North Pole important to some countries? Words to know. Arctic, climate change, cooperations, disputes, extinction, international, minerals, petroleum, remote, resources, routes, territory, tundra. Tables of content. Introduction 4. Geography 5. Why is North Pole valuable? 8. Indigenous people of the Arctic 11. Who wants the North Pole? 12. Conclusion 15. Glossary 16. Introduction. When you hear the word North Pole, do you think of a cold, empty place out in the middle of nowhere? Yes, it's cold and remote, but it's far from empty. Actually, North Pole and the area around it, the Arctic region, are filled with natural wonders. Who should those treasures belong to? Separate countries, all people, or the planet itself? Several countries are competing to own parts of Arctic region beyond their own borders. These grabs for Arctic resources will affect not only North Pole but all planet Earth. Geography. The North Pole is in the Arctic Ocean and the northernmost place on Earth. It's surrounded by sea ice which forms the Arctic ice cap. The size of the Arctic ice cap changes during different seasons as temperature rise and fall. Overall, the Arctic ice caps has been shrinking at the rate of 3.2% every 10 years since 1981. The scientist has evidence that the cause of climate change permanent lasting change in Earth's weather patterns. 5 countries surround the North Pole: Norway, Russia, Canada, and the United States, and Greenland. Each one owns an area that measures 200 nautical miles, 230 miles, or 370 kilometers out from its coastline. Within those 200 nautical miles, each country or region controls the right to resource. Those resources include water and wind for energy production, as well as minerals and fish. Beyond the boundary are international waters. The International Seabed Authority, ISA, sets rules about making mineral resources from seafloor of high seas. The ISA is a part of an agreement between countries. The agreement states that international waters are supposed to benefit all people, not separate countries. Climate change. Earth's climate change patterns have been shifting over the past 100 years. The past 20 years have seen many of the warmest year ever recorded. While not all parts of Earth are warming at the same rate, global air temperatures have increased about 2 degrees over the past century. Almost all scientists agree that an important cause of high temperatures is carbon dioxide on Earth's atmosphere, produced by human activities like burning coal or to power factories and using petroleum products for cars. Carbon dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere trap the sun's heat energy, preventing it from escaping into space. Scientists know this warming is linked to human activity because currently the climate is heating about 10 times faster than it heated up in other, naturally occurring in warming periods. There are many different effects of climate change. Some places will experience drought and extremely high temperatures, while other places will get more rainfall and more frequent hurricanes. The ocean coral reefs would die because coral can't survive in high temperatures, and in the Arctic, climate change is causing glaciers and polar ice caps to melt and sea level to rise. As of early 2014, 165 countries plus the European Union had ratified or approved this agreement. After ratification, a country has 10 years to file requests if it believes it deserves any areas beyond the exclusive economic zone, EEZ. If a country's request is approved, all resources in the larger area belongs to that country. Why might a country expand its territory? The area measuring 200 nautical miles from each country coastline is called Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. Exclusive, not shared by others. Economic, relying on buying and selling. zone, an area with special purpose or a set of rules. Beyond those EEZs, some areas in the Arctic Circle belong to no one, at least for now. Why the North Pole is valuable. The Arctic region, an area north of Arctic Circle, has a wealth of natural resources. One of the ones people most dependent on is petroleum, which include both oil and natural gas. Although located under Earth's surface, petroleum is easier to reach now that it passed because the Arctic ice cap is melting. Right now, the Arctic region provides about 10% of the world's oil and 25% of natural gas. Experts estimate that even larger supply of each may be discovered near the North Pole in the future. According to the Environment Protection Agency, using petroleum-based energy can cause a lot of pollution and is the main cause of climate change. Many climate scientists believe that in order to reduce this pollution, countries will have to stop using petroleum-based energy immediately. However, petroleum products are main energy sources around the world. We depend on them for more than half of our energy. They're non-renewable, meaning they will run out someday. Possibility as soon as 40 to 50 years from now. As a result, many countries are scrambling for new supplies of petroleum. We should decrease our dependence on petroleum by using other energy sources such as wind, solar, and electric power. Beyond natural resources, the Arctic offers the promise of new shipping routes. Right now, most of those routes can be used only during warmer months. When much of the sea ice melts, however, will continue melting. Routes may be open during much more of the year. For example, a ship recently traveled from northern Russia to China during February for the first time ever. Dangerous business. Obtaining natural resources in the Arctic region is riskier and more expensive than it is on most parts of the globe. Here's why. Regular equipment can't always handle the climate. Special equipment must be used or, in some cases, developed at work in extreme cold, wet conditions. Transporting materials and people in such a remote location is expensive. Higher wages need to be paid to people who work in such remote places. If accident happens, the distance from search and rescue facilities might mean additional loss of life or increase the damage to equipment or the environment. Regular cleanup equipment can't handle Arctic oil spills. Cleaning up oil spills in the sea of ice is much more complicated than liquid water. Scientists and environmental groups argue that the Arctic region is valuable not only to humans, it's also valuable because the natural environment and widely variety of life forms it supports. These include tundra vegetations, caribou, polar bears, whales, and seals. Using more Arctic resources could upset the natural environment in many ways. Polar bears are already in danger of extinction. Because of polar ice melt, many scientists believe that between 2050 and 2100, most polar bears will die off. Scientists are also concerned that drilling for petroleum could negatively impact caribou and bird populations. Roads, truck power lines, and drilling causes noise and disrupt of wildlife, which might impact migratory and mating patterns. Indigenous people of the Arctic. Indigenous people make up 10% of the people living in Arctic. The Arctic is home to 40 distinct indigenous ethnic groups, including the Sami and the Inuit, which, while all Arctic indigenous tribe nations in their group are different, they are similar in that their cultures and survivals are built on indigenous knowledge. Indigenous knowledge has been developed over thousands of years through observation of the Arctic's unique environment and traditions that reflect on their surrounding. Inuit people both in the past and today rely on wildlife such as caribous, seals, walruses, and whales. They use every part of these animals such as bone, teeth, fat, skin. These resources provide them food, clothing, boats, and tools. Because the lifestyle of Arctic indigenous people relies so much on the environment, they're uniquely hurt by climate changes. When ice melts, it is more difficult for members of these groups to hunt animals that are more important to their ways of life. Some indigenous people are at the risk of hunger because hunting provides much of their food. Changes in the environment also make less safe to drink. Who wants the North Pole? 4 countries, Norway, Russia, Canada, and Greenland, have filed requests for larger territories than they now own. In other words, those 4 countries want more of the Arctic region than just their EEZ. In some cases, they want territory all the way to the North Pole. Russia's Arctic coastline is about 4,300 miles, 77,000 kilometers long. It has the longest coastline of any country bordering the Arctic Ocean. In 2007, Russia sent a small research ship on the seafloor at the North Pole. Ships gathered samples of soil and water from an underwater land feature called the Lomonosov Ridge. Scientists hope it to prove that the ridge is part of Russia and should belong to Russia. Ownership should give Russia the right as any natural resources found there. In 2021, Russia claimed that even more of the seabed, adding 7,005,000 square kilometers to its claims. However, large across the Arctic Ocean, the Lomonosov Ridge connects to Canada, which has also the second longest Arctic coastlines. Canada also claims the underwater mountain ridges as part of its seabed. Denmark too seeks the ownership of the ridge because it has a historic relationship with Greenland. Canada and the United States disagree about the ownership in another area, the Beaufort Sea, which is north of both Western Canada and Alaska. These all disputes have to do with minerals rights as well as control the shipping routes. Russia, Norway, and possibly other nations are also interested in expanding their territories for military purpose. They are worried that they might someday need to defend their Arctic resources. They also want good locations for military bases in case of a war between Eastern and Western Hemispheres countries. Arctic routes should shorten travel distances for military planes and ships to reach their targets. No decision they have been made yet about countries' requests to own more of the Arctic region. Each country believes it has a good reason to expand its territory. The disputes continue to set the countries at odds with each other. Could there be a different plan for changing the Arctic region? What about the North-South Pole? South Pole at the end of the Earth's axis, also a place of extreme cold. An international agreement prevents any country from owning Antarctica or using its resources. The continent is set aside for scientific research and peaceful purpose only. No military activity is permitted there. Should those names guidelines be applied to the Arctic region? Conclusion: 50 or 100 years from now, should any country own the Arctic region, including the North Pole? Some people believe that indigenous groups and their indigenous laws should be given great consideration of these debates. 6 Arctic indigenous groups are considered permanent participants in the Arctic Council, a group that encourages Arctic collaboration and problem solving across nations. Through the Arctic Council, these groups have input on policies and laws impacting the Arctic. The countries that want to expand their areas of control in the Arctic region face important decisions. What path will win, peaceful cooperation or competition control? Should the threat of climate change and the importance of Arctic's wildlife impact these decisions? Do you think the Arctic countries should choose?
Good job.